Hey, so about a year ago I did a video on the Scott Pilgrim books, one of my all-time favorite postmodern romance dramedies. I love the romance, I love the characters, I love the existential dread. It's all perfect. Since then I've been bombarded with questions regarding what I thought about the Scott Pilgrim anime. Now, I've been hesitant to check it out because I've already been horribly disappointed by another adaptation, so getting disappointed again would just crush my heart. But you people have been so kind and supportive of me, I feel it's my duty to share my thoughts. So let's finally check this thing out. Well, first of all, I love the old school visual style. It looks so authentic, like it's straight out of the 80s. And here we have our Scott, except he's not called Scott here for some reason. Instead he's been renamed to Kyosuke Kasuga. I guess they wanted to help the show appeal more to Japanese audiences. Whatever, it's fine. He's jumping up a flight of stairs, counting each step, until a red straw hat comes flying towards him. Ah, this must be our Ramona. The same chance encounter, love at first sight kind of vibe. They get into a whimsical argument about how many steps there were, and then she disappears off without giving a name. So naturally our guy immediately has the hots for her. He then goes home and gets hit in the face by a huge drawer. Oh yeah, he also has sisters now, a couple of twins, obviously. Likely more Japanese audience pandering, cause we know Japan likes their sisters. And not only does he have sisters, they're also psychic. Yes. And not only are they psychic, he's also psychic. One big psychic family. It's kinda like they took the video game aspects from the original, but just changed it into an Esper thing, cause that's the hot thing in Japan. Well, either that or they're all vegan. They also have a cat. Very important. So it turns out Kasuga and his family just moved to town, a result of them having to move to a new place every time his stupid sister reveals their powers. So we're catching them on their first day of school at the new place. On the way, a girl getting a ride on a guy's bike makes a sick entrance. After swiftly establishing herself as a plucky little girl, she begins a brutal humiliation of the guy who was nice enough to give her a ride. Then continues to harass our main family. Wow, what a bitch. Hopefully she's not gonna be very important. Anyways, up in Kasuga's classroom he mistakes an empty seat as being an available seat. Then elicits uproarious laughter when assuming the owner is taking a bathroom break. Turns out the seat's owner is a girl who has a reputation of being a bit of a delinquent. Can you guess who that might be? So, her name is Madoka Ayukawa, and is nicknamed Madoka the Pig, cause she has a guitar pick on her saxophone. Also, can somebody explain to me why it's the saxophone you play when you're a brooding teenage girl? Meanwhile, the bratty girl from earlier has got into some trouble with the bikers she not so politely told to buzz off. While showing herself to not be entirely defenseless, she nevertheless gets outmatched. But then... Yes, that was a guitar pick she just threw and embedded into his hand. I guess that's why they call her the Pig. She then proceeds to beat the shit out of everyone. Quite the difference in behavior from earlier. The big guy makes a kind-hearted offer, but Madoka counters back by judo throwing him down the embankment. Alright, well, she retains the badass nature at least. Oh shit, she smokes. I mean, of course she smokes, she's clearly supposed to be Ramona. And then we get what initially sold me on the show. Kasuga's made it pretty clear to the sisters they shouldn't be using their powers at all. But then... I mean, at this point I'm hooked. It's such a small thing, but what a great character establishing moment. It doesn't even do anything, she just lights up another as if nothing happened. So he goes all straight edge on her instead. To predictable results. This of course only makes him crush on her even more. Pretty spot on thus far. Some awkward interactions follow as she's playing hot and cold. The classic master of mixed signals. He gets the odd looks for applauding her doing some crazy stunts. The appropriate punishment for simping, of course. He considers trying to impress her by using his powers, but decides against it due to some moral grounds or whatever. And I mean, who would dedicate their lives to someone just cause they made a shot in basketball? How vain does he think women are? While contemplating how much of a failure he is, The bratty girl from earlier has snuck into the back and joins in silently judging him. Then this happens. Okay, well, I guess that would be fairly impressive. But still, who would want to devote their entire being to someone just because they made a shot in basket? Oh, never mind. I guess I don't know the inner workings of women after all. Ah, I see now. So this girl Hikaru is supposed to be Knife's Chow then. The cheerful, immature, naive fake girlfriend who has yet to have her poor heart crushed. That's fair. She gets the part done well. Some wacky hijinks occur, culminating in Kasuga getting yelled at for mingling with delinquent girls. And we all know delinquent girls are a fearsome bunch that should be shunned by society. Madoka happens to overhear his white knighting, and then this happens. Well, I guess that managed to impress her. Later he goes out to the club to try and meet up with Madoka, but accidentally runs into and starts dancing with Hikaru instead, leaving Madoka to dance with some other creeps. Hikaru then has the gall to ask Kasuga on a date, and for some dumb fuck reason he goes sure, why not. He doesn't even think about it, his brain just immediately gets filled with dopamine at the thought that somebody finds him desirable enough to be dated, so he just says yes to whoever it happens to be, in true pubescent boy fashion. He then totally biffs the date by instead going for a boat ride and randomly running into Madoka, though they at least have a nice time instead. Unfortunately, this leads to Kasuga getting sick, giving Hikaru a perfect excuse to drop by his place and show support, in a very sweet scene that clearly demonstrates their chemistry. Of course, rumors working like they do, soon everybody becomes well aware that he and her are apparently dating, much to the joy of a certain someone else. He makes his thoughts on the matter pretty clear to her, but she immediately pulls the pity card, leading to the dumb idiot relenting. And so they continue to go out, while Kasuga and Madoka both secretly long for each other. Alright, a bit trite maybe, but seems okay thus far. I mean, I'm intrigued to see how the two lovebirds will get together at least. So now that the premise has been thoroughly established, what's gonna happen next? I guess he's gonna break up with the little brat soon so we can get back to focusing on his attempts to get together with Madoka. But let's see what the next episode is gonna be. Oh, he hangs around with Hikaru while Madoka gets mad. Okay, well, no need to rush. What about the next one? He has fun with Madoka, but Hikaru shows up and spoils it all. Right. So when are you gonna dump her, you idiot? Then the next episode is him hanging around with Hikaru and... Oh no, don't tell me this is it. This is our status quo? No. No! Oh god. Okay, well, that's not entirely accurate. Occasionally a new character gets introduced, like this guy. Ah, this must be one of the evil ex-boyfriends. Finally. Oh, he's actually obsessed with Hikaru instead. Oh, I guess never mind. But outside of introducing more annoying characters, by and large, at this point most every episode is just Hikaru being sweet towards Kasuga, Kasuga making a goofy face in return, and Madoka being pouty. So the whole show from here on out is basically just Urusei Yatsura, except the magic abilities got transferred over to the indecisive protagonist. Only Kasuga isn't forced the same way Ataru is. He's just a horrible coward instead. Though to be fair, Lum was only using lightning to force Ataru. Hikaru is going for the pity and self-loathing factor, which is of course a much more effective strategy. Also, Hikaru might actually say darling more times than Lum. You know, whenever you hear a word enough times it loses all meaning? That's called semantic satiation. Yes, that has a fancy name. Oh god, I can't take it anymore. So here's my main problem with the show. This kind of contrived nonsense pisses me off more than anything. Every other episode has me screaming in frustration over the fact that these two don't just get to make out already. No, god damn it! But most of all, I get frustrated at how stupid this stupid asshat idiot is. Cause he's not only wasting his own time, but he's also wasting the time of this truly manipulative, greedy girl that refuses to take a hint. Even whenever there's an episode where he has the perfect opportunity to just peel off the band-aid, he can't help but go, no, of course I love you. Great lesson for the kids out there. And don't you dare tell me he actually likes her, or I will angrily yell at you. They even tease this themselves at times. Like when they go out to a pool together, his monkey brain gets activated by her for once. But it's repeatedly established that he doesn't give a single shit about her. Especially in the cold manner he regularly treats her. This forced one-way romance works in Urusei Yatsura cause we want Ataru to be together with Lum. Or rather, you and the audience want to be together with Lum. The appeal comes from the loser audience surrogate character being desired by a girl way out of his league. Thus letting letting the audience watching feel better through the vain hope that they might experience a similar situation. Basic wish fulfillment. As such, pleasure is derived from Ataru's feeble attempts at trying to escape being met with punishment, cause we want to see him punished for not fulfilling our wish to just embrace Lum already. And I like Hikaru, I think she's a fun character, but we don't want to be together with Hikaru, we want to be together with Madoka, cause she's not an immature little crazy person. Thus, Kasuga's own feeble attempts at trying to escape the situation just makes it endlessly frustrating, as opposed to being funny or sweet. And sure, I get it, they're trying to show Kasuga and Madoka getting along in a magical and unspoken manner while keeping them separate. But you don't need the contrived love triangle horseshit to have that. It would be lovely if the fake girlfriend could just disappear. And then having it focus on two young people getting together and learning to work out a relationship. But you rarely see stories in that manner. There always has to be some stupid thing in their way. Cause the moment you have the two get together, then what do? Though to be fair, it can be engaging to see two people blocked off from each other. Romeo and Juliet, anyone? And there are exceptions, of course. That's what I always loved about the original manga. Graphic novel, of course. It's one of the cases where it gets past all the nonsense right away and then goes on to provide a conflict and drama that is reasonable and not forced nonsense. Look, bottom line, I need these characters to get together so I can vicariously satiate my romantic desires without having to bother with wasting my time on a real girlfriend. That's the only reason we're here, so just let the two get together and bang the shit out of each other. Honestly, the show excels whenever it stops focusing on the stupid love triangle, just cause of how ridiculous some of the plots can be. A classic is the one where Aizen, who plays a sports coach that has all the girls getting wet, tries to have his way with someone who has absolutely no interest in him. He can freely pick between any of these willing victims. I don't know. I don't know what goes on in the heads of guys like that. Then there's the one where Madoka fights a bunch of delinquent girls by throwing her trademark pics at them. Then proceeds to face off with the leader in a one-on-one skateboard battle. The entire sequence is nothing but a sight to behold. But one of my favorite episodes is one that doesn't even focus on anyone from the love triangle at all, but instead lets one of the sisters get a spot in the limelight. She basically skanks up and goes out to try and get some by random dudes on the street, and they're just not that interested. This is fascinating. I never imagined I would be so invested in a girl and her quest to get laid. It of course only gets better when shenanigans happen and she starts crushing on Kasuga. You know, her brother. Still doing that Japanese pandering, I see. She also starts to reveal some hidden depths, being upset that nobody appreciates her work back at home. See, what I like about fiction is being able to experience perspectives I'd never otherwise see. And you know, this qualifies. I've never personally tried to be a girl, so whatever insights I can get I'll take, even if it is from some guy who likely knows just as much as I do. So now I've gotten interested in checking out more stuff about girls flusing up in the troubles they're in. But I don't have any familiarity with the genre. I guess there's Nana, but that's not really scratching that itch for me. So if anybody can recommend something along these lines worth checking out, please let us know. except for maybe Metamorphosis. But that's not to say that I don't want the romance stuff in here. Au contraire, whenever it manages to get away from Hikaru, the moments between Kasuga and Madoka actually manage to be rather tender and sweet. It totally has the right vibes down, especially together with... Okay, I'll admit I've been very reluctant to praise many elements of the show thus far, but if there's one aspect where it is unequivocally amazing, it's the soundtrack. I'm just gonna say this, and I know how ridiculous it sounds. I know how furious you're gonna be. But if I'm being honest, this might be my favorite anime soundtrack of all time. Well, that's not entirely fair, cause the majority is vocal tracks. In fact, I can't really for the life of me recall any of the background music. So if we were to discredit the vocal tracks, then sure, it would go to Evangelion or, I don't know, the Garfield show or some other shit. But I absolutely implore you to give a playlist of the music a listen, cause more people need to appreciate it. We've got party songs for the parties, we've got silly love songs for silly little girls, and best of all, sad love ballads in spades. It feels very much evocative of the kind of banging stuff you'd hear in the 80s. I mean, a lot of these tracks gives Konyo a Hurricane, arguably the greatest song ever made, a run for its money. And that's not to say the soundtrack is the only thing the show gets right. After all, it was animated by Studio Pierrot. Wow. So of course it has top-notch visuals. You can totally ignore the trite premise and just watch the show for the moment-to-moment shenanigans, with there being so much personality in everything. The characters, the animation, the edits. It's a visual treat of nonsense. Not to mention many great out-of-context scenes. I mean, I'd put this frame up on my wall were I not too lazy. I mean, I could make a whole highlight reel out of this stuff. However, the craziness definitely overloads in episode 43. This episode, it might genuinely be the single most mind-melting thing I have ever watched. And unfortunately, I can't really explain it to you. Because to truly understand how insane it is, you need the full experience of having watched 42 episodes of a goofy, formulaic romantic comedy, and then be presented with this. None of the characters act like they usually do. A complete 180 in tone. There's not a single aspect of levity. Completely bizarre actions on the part of the protagonist. A confusing narrative where you're not sure what the hell is even happening. An artsy dreamlike environment. And then it ends. And then the next episode is back to goofy romance nonsense. What? I mean, it's like if you took a latter half episode of Evangelion and inserted in between 2 episodes of Friends. Seriously, most fans are genuinely trying to figure out what in the world they were thinking. And don't get me wrong, I usually cream my pants whenever goofy media suddenly takes a dark turn. But I would prefer if it at least A. made sense, B. had some kind of rationale behind it, and C. wasn't just a single random episode that left no impact on anything. At least the first 2 points are upheld in the episode with the girl crushing on Madoka, but I don't know, I gotta stop thinking about this. So, the ending. Well, we've got a 2-parter finale, so you know shit's about to go down. In fact, I'm gonna throw in a spoiler warning right now. It's that crazy. So if you wanna save it for yourself, then please skip ahead to this time code. It starts out with Kasuga and Madoka chilling by a tree, when she then gets reminded of her first love. This of course makes Kasuga incredibly jealous since, like any other man, he gets upset at the idea of the girl he likes having previously been within 5 feet of any other male creature. Thank God there's nothing at all hypocritical about that notion. Anyways, turns out the guy somehow saved her life and she promised 6 years later, as in today, to meet up with him again. While being in a slump, Kasuga's grandpa then just hits him on the head. Which causes Kasuga to fall into a construction site. Oh yeah, his family had magical powers. I'll excuse you if you forgot, cause it often feels like the writers forget as well. Anyways, he stumbles upon Madoka about to make out with some dude. Again, it's a good thing there's nothing at all hypocritical about this reaction. During his little temper tantrum, he runs into a pair of little kids that seem eerily familiar. So, as I'm sure you may have figured out by now, we've got time travel involved. As he learns he got sent back 6 years in time. Yes, I love it. That's just the kind of insane premise you can only hope to get out of a series finale. It's worth mentioning time travel isn't exactly foreign to the show, as we've previously had a Groundhog Day episode, but not a go back in time to see kids versions yet. It's interesting because it feels eerily similar to an episode of Tokimeki Tonight. Then again, Urusei Yatsura did the same thing, so I guess it's just the obvious story to do when working with this kind of premise. But whatever. So what do you do when you get sent 6 years back in time? Well, go take a nap, naturally. Thankfully, a little kid comes over to help keep the plot going, which leads to him and the little tomboy getting into a big brawl. Kasuga's about to use his powers to get an upper hand when he suddenly remembers something his grandpa once said. Oh man, I can't wait till I become an old man and warn my kids not to screw up the past. They put up a good fight together, but the little kid clumsily falls off a cliff that just coincidentally happened to be next to the tree. Wait, isn't that the construction site that was previously right across from the tree? Fuck it. So Kasuga goes against Grandpa Simpson's advice to save her because he feels bad her only friend is a tree. I mean, that's basically it. While trying to help her stand up, he discovers... Dun da da da! Oh my god, she's a girl! Oh, sorry. I guess that was somehow supposed to be a twist. Well, of course he assumed she was a boy. What girl would ever have short hair? And if you thought her being a girl was ridiculous, get a load of this big twist. Yeah, so does this count as grooming then? Is this temporal grooming? That shit ain't okay, Kasuga. So then Kasuga tries to go back to the future when it turns out that Madoka spent... What? How did she get kidnapped? So Kasuga comes to her rescue again, heroically conquering a bunch of nits. Hey, remember that red straw hat from the start of the show? Yeah, Kasuga buys it for her. That's right, not only do we have time travel, we're entering stable time loop territory. This can only be good. Oh god no, don't kiss him! Ugh, that's so weird. Ugh. So he promises to see Madoka again in 6 years. Oh hey, there she is. Yeah, so Grandpa decides to further mess with everything by then sending her back in time. You know, for a guy who advises against changing the past, he sure likes to invite its inevitability. That Grandpa's got a screw or two loose. So this is basically the writer's ultimate attempt to try and grant Kasuga and Madoka alone time away from Hikaru. Just send them both back in time. Well, at least it finally got them to hug it out and allowed Kasuga to come clean about having magical powers. Which is another thing that's been a pain. Like, when is he gonna reveal that? How's she gonna react when he reveals it? Oh, well, that was very anticlimactic. He then runs off to get some food, but why can't she just come along as well? Oh, so he can fall off the stairs into an It's a Wonderful Life knockoff when nobody knows him. Very inconvenient. He then remembers his grandpa also warned him about a person interacting with the past self. Damn, that shit would make even Time Gal proud. So then he tries to look for Madoka. Oh, there she is. Of course, without her heroic defroster around to help melt her Ice Queen heart, she's become a true delinquent who's gotten into hot trouble with a biker gang. She then gets kidnapped again, and these biker guys almost... Well, of course. Thank God Kasuga manages to come to the rescue again. Do we really need him to win the hearts of 3 different versions of her? And then it doesn't matter anyways, because he just randomly slips back into the proper timeline again. That whole segment was straight up just to re-establish their meant-to-be-ness. Like the writers are that worried we're not getting it. We then return to the present, with our intrepid hero yet again napping by the same tree, and being woken up by Madoka yet again, with the two finally kissing for good. Fade to Polaroid. And that's the end of the show. Which, is a little weird considering they only got as far as like halfway through the first book. I mean, he hasn't even fought any of the evil ex-boyfriends yet. Like I had heard they changed a lot, but I didn't expect them to pad things out to this extent, by adding a bunch of random filler and making up such an extremely dramatic way for the two to finally get together. He didn't even break up with the Knives Chow character yet. I mean, they must be saving that for the next season. Okay, so can I just drop that joke already? I mean, if you actually watched this far, then surely you deserve an apology more than anything, so... sorry. Admittedly, it is a bit of a stretch to compare an anime like Kimagure Orange Road, that's the name of the thing you've heard me talk about for the last 20 minutes, to Scott Pilgrim, since outside of the love triangle aspect, they're completely different beasts. But my goal here was not so much to make a lackluster comparison as a joke, but rather to compare and contrast how different this kind of story can be told, as well as to bring attention to a relatively forgotten show. I know all you Orange Road fans out there watching, all 5 of you, might be mad that I'm ripping apart your favorite show, but hey, I'm a fan too. Okay, well, it's more a love-hate relationship. I admittedly was screaming in anger every other second while watching it, but if you have a fondness for retro anime and go in knowing what to expect, it's honestly a great watch. And of course, my petty complaints are completely unfair. Keep in mind, this show is 38 years old. I mean, that Groundhog Day episode is 5 years older than the Groundhog Day movie. Most of the things I take issues with were actually revolutionary for 1987. And again, magical powers aside, it honestly has a great down-to-earth vibe. I mean, Madoka is not some manic pixie dream girl. She's just a somewhat reclusive loner. She doesn't want to go on crazy adventures or lead to crazy mishaps. She just wants to study and lead a normal life with the guy she likes. Now you can argue about whether or not she's just some perfect fantasy girl for the other to pretend get together with, but I think she has enough flaws to defy that perception. Plus, I think Casca works well as a protagonist. I mean, I hate him. I want to slap him all the time. But that's what makes him so relatable. I also want to slap Scott most of the time, and I want to punch myself all the time. Lastly, as previously stated, there's a great charm in the show's aesthetics. The style is dripping with the best of what the 80s had to offer, the animation is amazing. And again, music, favorite soundtrack, go give it a damn listen if you like city pop. Also, I know I was basically talking shit throughout it all, but I actually kinda loved the finale. After you tease two people getting together for so long, you need something special in the end to finally make the first kiss feel deserved. And even though there is still a lingering question left unanswered, the embrace itself felt pretty satisfying. Unfortunately, a lot of the things I complained about are still complaints. Hikaru still just feels like a plot device to drive a wedge between Casca and Madoka, rather than a fully formed character of her own. And whenever she's not the cause of drama, it's a stupid misunderstanding at fault. In fact, here's a fun game if you decide to watch the show. Try to guess the misunderstanding. My friend and I got pretty good at it after a while. And finally, outside of maybe the first 10 or so episodes, there's not really any proper character development from then on. It just gets firmly stuck in the status quo. Now, I feel bad complaining about that, since it was just the way things were back at the time. But that kind of format can be hard to go back to still. Because of these major problems, it's hard to fully recommend the show. I say if you're interested in a charming and fun, though ultimately a bit flawed romantic comedy, I would suggest giving it a chance. I mean, here's one thing I can say in its favor. It sparked an interest in checking out more romance stories, a genre I previously had zero interest in, so that at least has to say something to its effect. But if you can recommend something that would for sure be worth checking out, I would love to hear from you. As for Kimagure Orange Road, I'm afraid it's destined to just be remembered as a mediocre romance story from a bygone era. At least, it would be, were it not for its sequel film being my all-time favorite anime movie. But that's for another time. Oh, wait, you wanted me to talk about Scott Pilgrim Takes Off! Oh well, I haven't watched it yet,